Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Solid Ground. What is actually the 150th episode by my count, so welcome along. I've probably said it before, but it only feels like yesterday that Bob asked me to start this live, political, cultural commentary show, and as I say, it only feels like yesterday. And here we are, 150 episodes in, going strong. And I wanted to say, actually, a big thank you to all of you as viewers, those who join here live, but also I know a lot of you will view this later in the day because we see the metrics. Thank you. I love the questions, love the commentary. And I have to say, very encouraged as the numbers for this show and actually all the Family First shows, whether it's Daybreak with Bob in the morning, or obviously political playback, counterculture, the numbers just keep growing and growing. And it's really, really encouraging. And look, I'm not going to comment much further on this, but I think it's actually a sign of how, if you will, alternative media is beginning to move, well, into the mainstream space. So whether it is Family First show, or I don't know, the likes of Sean Plunkett on the platform, RCR, of course, Chris Lynch's media, there's a real change happening, and you're part of that. So again, good morning. Lovely to have you along. I'm just going to do a couple of quick notices first. Sounds like the end of a church service, doesn't it? A couple of quick notices around our forum on the family. It's only really a couple of months away now, so you need to register. But I just want to introduce to you one of our guests who will be speaking, granted virtually. Won't be able to hear in person, but this is one of the speakers. It's going to be very exciting. You'll know him instantly once I press this button.
Hello, Dr. Ben Carson here, and I am so much looking forward to being with you virtually in New Zealand to participate in Family First Forum on the Family. And congratulations on the 20th year of function. And hopefully there'll be many more. I'll look forward to seeing you September 2026.
There you go. Ben is just one of the speakers. As I say, there's quite a lineup as I disappear off the screen for a moment. There's quite a lineup of speakers, and Ben is one of them. As he says, he's going to be there virtually, but there's Sel Grover, there's Gillian Spencer, Andrew Amos, said Martin Isles, Leighton Smith will be interviewing Bob. There's going to be a medical panel. There's going to be a political panel. There's going to be a media panel. So look, there is no shortage of, I think, interesting speakers and perspectives. So register now. Just head over to the Family First website or go to forumonthefamily.nz. And a reminder too, as I jump off the screen, there is a special rate for students. So if you're a student, if you're one of the young people watching this morning, know that you can get not only 2 days of a conference, but we'll also feed and water you. So look, come along. And also if you're a parent with young ones, see this as an investment in the future. Our young ones these days are indoctrinated with so much, well, I was going to say crap, and now I have, so much rubbish, particularly through the schools and universities, through social media and the like, that actually bringing them to something like the Forum on the Family, I think, makes a very big difference. Hey, I'm going to actually, I said on Tuesday that I would share a few pictures from Rachel and my trip away recently. As you know, we were away a month, so I promised I would do that, and I will. What I will just very quickly, because I always need to, is to say good morning to people. So we've got, I can see Mike is there, Samuel, good morning, Rosie there in Taupo. In fact, now that you mention the weather, I'm looking outside, exceptionally foggy here in Auckland. When I came to the studio this morning, it was pitch black, so couldn't see a thing. Jackie, good morning. Nigel there in Te Awamutu, sounds like foggy across the country by the sound of it. Oh no, it's stunning, Mike is telling me, down in Mount Maunganui. I am jealous. As I say, that's Rachel and my happy place. The mount is where we retreat to when we can. Good morning, we've got Liam talking fireworks again. Lovely to have you there. Morning, Pat. A jolly good morning from Food Dogs Trucking. Bernice, another one. Well, Mount Maunganui, Tauranga, I'll put them together briefly. Chilly by the sound of it as well. Lovely. Adrian, lovely to have you here. James noting that Stuart Nash, I have to say, was. He has, I'm not going to talk about it this morning. We'll probably touch on political playback tonight. But yes, Stuart Nash has resigned as a New Zealand First candidate now after his latest stuff up, I suppose. Lots more to say about actually that saga. His comments, I think, to do with his National Party competitor, Kate Nimon. But yeah, not the first time that, if you will, Stuart's put his foot in his mouth. So he's away. And Diane, good morning to you. I, as always, better stop. Hey, actually, before I get to my photos, I want to share two lovely stories. I think wonderful stories. One from overseas, Australia, and one from New Zealand, and both to do with babies. Who doesn't like babies? This was a remarkable story. I hope you've seen it. A Brisbane mum has given birth to 4 babies who are identical. So you know about identical twins. In fact, some of you may be identical twins. She has given birth to 4 identical quadruplets. Isn't that quite extraordinary? First and foremost for the family, 4 babies at once. And get this, they already have 4 children. I don't have a photo of that, but the kids from the photo I have seen look like they're sort of 3 or 4 up to around 10. So they already have 4 children, and now they have 4 more. So imagine that, going from 4 to 8 kids, bang. I mean, God, quite extraordinary. And also quite amazing, really, again, medically, scientifically, but also just in a family nature. So 4 children just like that, and all identical. Extraordinary. The other observation to be made is that they have birthed the babies at 28 weeks. So they're now in incubation and being looked after. I understand all very healthy, but yeah, they birthed them at 28 weeks. I don't know exactly why. I'm sure, yeah, probably to do with space. I don't know. But what is extraordinary is 28 weeks. And this is a little bit of an edge to the story, of course, because you'll know where I'm going to go with this. New Zealand has some of the most extreme, if not the most extreme, abortion laws in the world, which allows abortion right up to birth, a denial of the humanity of the child right up to birth. And so while this is an absolute triumph for this family, an absolute moment of celebration, I suppose, to a little bit of dread, 4 more kids on top of 4, at 28 weeks they've been birthed. They're little human beings. And the tragedy, unfortunately, in New Zealand today, every day, children at 28 weeks and beyond are being terminated. And I think this should confront anyone who is pro-death or pro-abortion. So anyway, heavier angle on that, but I still think absolutely amazing. Natalie's noting, I don't know, even imagine how little sleep mums got. That's right. And you would know, Natalie, with your 2 precious and lovely, well, they're not really so much babies anymore, but yes, I look, full kudos to mums. I honestly don't know how you do it, but so grateful that you do. I mean, gosh, Rachel, when she had her 5, although they were in sort of 2 tranches, if you want, the first 3, then a gap, then the next 2. But it's extraordinary, as we'll say, Natalie, and other mums here will be nodding. But yes, 8 kids and 4 of them. 4 of them. Oh. As Peter's saying, I hope they've got good family support. I would say they do. I mean, I don't know them, but I just think quite extraordinary. Yeah. Anyway, excuse me for a second. I'm still battling my voice. I haven't quite been back a week from my travels. And the other story is this. Literally just saw it this morning as I was setting up the show. This is in Whakatane. A New Zealand woman who chose to give birth before starting treatment for breast cancer. And actually reminds me of an acquaintance in Canada, actually, who was in a similar situation. So a mother, a pregnant woman, diagnosed with cancer. The doctors here in Whakatane, as they were in Canada, to this other person I know, saying, look, we need to terminate the baby so that we can begin medical treatment on you. And I think what is a great, I don't know, symbolic action of motherhood, or rather, it's not actually symbolic because it's actually quite real, but I think it is the very mothery nature to say, no, as this Whakatane mum has done, no, I'm going to give birth to the child, and then we'll begin my treatment. And I think that's that sacrificial element, which is just so vitally, vitally important. In fact, I've talked with a woman called Katie Faust around this before, around actually being a parent, being an adult, is about actually sacrificing for your children in all sorts of ways. This one, of course, is exceptionally dramatic. But, all of you, I mean, there was a comment earlier from Natalie around sleep. We sacrifice our sleep for our kids, our time, our money, and all of that. And it's totally right and appropriate. And so kudos to this mum in Whakatane for birthing her baby. I think it's now actually baby number 9 in their family. I mean, that's extraordinary too. But kudos for putting her child first. And now we, of course, wish her well for her cancer treatment. I mean, that's, yeah. As a side note, actually, the woman I was referencing in Canada that I know of has actually had a remarkable recovery. She was told if she didn't abort her baby and didn't undertake immediate treatment for her cancer, she would die. She's now fit and well as to the baby, which is always a reminder, guys, that, the medical profession's not always right. Muddy Waters is saying miracles and also to pray for her. She's a good mum. That is very true. And Food Dogs Trucking's wondering if I brought the bird flu back. No, but I did bring something else back potentially. I will get to that in a moment. And yeah, anyway, can be distracted by the comments coming through. So those were two, I think, really wonderful stories, and a real testament to motherhood as well. And there's a lovely comment from Mandy. So I said I'd share a few pictures of my trip because a number of you have been messaging and asking. So as you know, I went across, and Rachel did as well actually, and Samuel Bilton too. There's the three of us. We went across for a conference called ARC, the Alliance of Responsible Citizenship. It was started by the likes of Jordan Peterson, John Anderson, he's a former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, and a friend called Baroness Philippa Stroud. She's one of the Lords in the UK, along with many others, has started ARC about 3 years ago. And long and short, it's a conference of about 4,500 people in London who are saying, actually, our Western traditions, our Western culture, our Western civilization is worth celebrating, protecting, and developing. Our rule of law, our democratic structures, our Judeo-Christian values, all of these things are actually worth celebrating. And I suppose the corollary to that is we see that a lot of them are under attack at the moment. And so that was a big part of the conference. This is a picture, actually, Philippa is there, sitting on my left, and it's actually Nigel Farage that she's interviewing. So there were various politicians. In fact, Kemi Banadoc was there, for example, from the Conservatives, and others. But this was just one of those photos I happened to take, which is not only, I just think, is well composed, I have to say. And actually, really importantly, as Muddy Waters has commented here, you can actually hear all the speakers on YouTube. If you look up ARC Forum, you will find all the speeches. So you don't have to spend the thousands of dollars that we did to go across to London. You can hear the speakers as well. But look, an amazing conference, stinking hot, guys. It was like 35 degrees, and we were inside a building that was effectively a glass house. I kid you not. It was a Victorian era exhibition hall, all made out of glass, and there was no air conditioning. So I started day one in a full suit and tie, and then we were slowly downgrading. But there's the three of us from the Family First crew. Absolutely exceptional conference. Rach and I then went off to another one called Spiked Online. I don't know if any of you know the likes of Brendan O'Neill, Tom Slater. These are journalists who write for a newspaper, an online newspaper called Spiked. Very big into freedom of speech and also echoing some of the elements of ARC. The photos from that aren't so good. So we attended two conferences, but then it was a chance for Rach and I to have a little bit of a break. I'd like to think we work hard, but at the same time, as many of you will know, if you've spent all that money and taken all that time to get across to London, you might as well stay around the region. So we actually chose firstly to go to Morocco, and some of you may have seen this because I did a solid ground from Marrakesh, only a short one, but this is from our hotel. It's actually called a riad, R-I-A-D. It's sort of a traditional, in this case, Moroccan house. I think basically a big atrium and a building around it, somewhat what you would see in Italy in the Roman style as well. But anyway, this is a sunset looking towards a minaret of one of the big mosques there, because as you all know, Morocco is an Islamic country, so you don't have churches. There are mosques everywhere and minarets. But that for me was just beautiful. Morocco was stunning. You go from what you would think of the dry, arid deserts through to gorgeous green valleys where they grow the dates and so forth, and then right up to the coast, which has almost like a New Zealand beach. This is Rabat. This is actually a site of a former mosque that one of their kings built, and that's Rachel in the middle, and behind her is an incomplete minaret. I was wondering why it was all incomplete, but this was done at a time when the kings were changing. One kingly family took over from another, and hence the new ones didn't want to continue the project. Rachel and I got into the Sahara. That was an amazing experience, I have to say. There's something about deserts, and for those of you from a faith perspective will know your Bible. The place of deserts, not just for obviously Jesus, but all through the Bible and the prophets, there is just something quite profound. But I was only there for one night, not 40 days, and I didn't walk into the desert. We were taken in by camel, which was pretty cool, I have to say. Someone earlier quipped about whether I was coming back with bird flu. Well, there is, though, a story around this little monkey, because somewhere, it's called Ifran. They talk about it as the Swiss city of Morocco, and actually in a strange way it is. The architecture, the nature around it is actually very much like Switzerland, and actually it was built by the French when they were occupying Morocco to be sort of their retreat into the mountains, and certainly in winter to ski. But as you're coming into Ifran, there's these little monkeys, and all the tourists are stopping. They're wild monkeys. But the tourists stop like we do, and there's locals who hand you peanuts, and these monkeys jump all over you. Rachel wasn't terribly thrilled. I found it absolutely hilarious. But this little fellow here, about 20 seconds later, unfortunately, got startled by someone else. Not Rachel, but this little young monkey got startled, and get this, it bit my finger, my index finger, and 3 quite significant puncture wounds, I have to say. And so any of you now will be going, oh my lord, what happens when you get bitten by a wild monkey, in this case in Morocco? Well, what happens is, first and foremost, I found a pharmacy and got myself some rubbing oil, but you've got to get rabies shots. Now, before anyone panics, I don't have rabies, but you've got to go and, we don't have to, but I think precautionary, you go and get the vaccination. So I actually have spent some of my trip locating pharmacies in Morocco and then Portugal to get rabies shots, because you have to get 5 of them in total. So this poor little monkey got a bit of a taste of me, so hopefully the monkey's doing okay. But yes, getting bitten by a monkey in Morocco, I will just say this, it provided lots of mirth to people as I went to various, as I said, pharmacies and clinics in Morocco and then Portugal to talk to them about how, yes, I'd been bitten by this little monkey. Anyway, after Morocco, we headed across to Portugal. Quite a change. And look, many of you will know I'm Catholic, trained as a priest. I love this stuff. It possibly will offend some people's Protestant sensibilities, but I absolutely loved the architecture, and certainly the churches, the altarpieces. Just a stunning testament to human creativity, and also, I would argue that the worship of God, but just stunning. And the photos will barely do justice. But the other thing Portugal has is these amazing churches with these blue tiles all on the outside. So we're very familiar with stained glass windows, particularly in the English tradition, and they have that too in Portugal. But one of the other things they do is they use these blue tiles on the outside of churches to depict stories, and particularly biblical stories. And so just like stained glass windows tell us a story, these blue churches, and they're all through, particularly in Porto, in fact almost exclusively in Porto, churches that look like this, so they're telling stories on the outside. Just, again, absolutely amazing. And so I've got some comments kind of, yeah, the monkeys now has good value. Well, you'll see. I'll see what my blood does for the monkey. If you didn't get bitten by a monkey, don't you grow a tail? Well, look, this has been the joke. I think Rachel was a little bit concerned at the start, and understandably so. It wasn't particularly pleasant when you're in a car bleeding away. But yes, lots of jokes between Rachel, myself, and our driver that I'd start having more of a love of bananas, growing a tail, starting to make funny noises, and so on. So anyway, quite funny. So the Lockheed monkey. We also, and look, final ones, went to what's known as Livraria Lalo. It is arguably one of the most beautiful libraries in the world, and it was actually the inspiration for J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter for the library and the scenes of the castle. So J.K. Rowling went to this Livraria Lalo. I think I'm saying it right. But this library, it is just stunning. The architecture in this picture won't do it justice, but just absolutely beautiful, and still a working, fully functional bookstore. All sorts of books in Portuguese and French, German, English, as you might expect. Just beautiful architecture, and I say the place which inspired J.K. Rowling. And then before we headed to New York, we stopped back in London. This was us as we're about to watch Mamma Mia. That, I have to say, was great fun. A very fun time. And then we headed to New York, where Rachel's three eldest live. They live in Brooklyn, so we headed up to upstate New York for a while, just to spend time with them. So really, it was an amazing trip. Very grateful, actually, to the Family First crew for the chance to go and represent at ARC. In fact, we'll be doing some interviews with different people on the podcast over the coming weeks. And actually, speaking of the podcast, last week's, if you haven't checked it out, is with these two amazing Australian women, Elspeth and Lola. They're from Birdflip. They're pro-lifers who hit the streets and talk to people about human rights and the reality of what abortion is. They are amazing, amazing people. And just yesterday, this one dropped with Dr. Gavin Ashenden. If you don't know of Gavin, you need to. He's an amazing commentator. He used to be the chaplain to Her Majesty the Queen. You heard that right. He was her chaplain for a while. He's a writer. He's a substacker. He's a broadcaster. He used to be on the BBC. A strong, solid Christian faith. And he and I sit down and talk about what's happening to Britain. He does not hold back at all. And so, yeah, I really encourage you to listen to that. I see here New Zealand Sound saying I'm listening to ARC already, which is fantastic. Yes, Britain's strictest principal. So her name is Catherine Barbel-Singh. There we go. I always get it wrong. I don't have a picture here, but actually Rachel and I met her and talked with her for quite a while, actually, as you might expect of the UK's toughest principal. She doesn't hold back. Very strong opinions, and she gave a fantastic contribution at ARC. She also spoke at the Spiked Online conference. What's called Spiked Online, although the conference was in person, about 800 of us there. And look, long and short, she stresses how both parents and teachers need to inculcate kids with good values, and points out a lot of the ills that we're seeing in our young people at the moment is because they've been indoctrinated in the wrong direction. So check that out. Look, I will just say one other very quick thing. I'm just going to play this little video. It's Marco Rubio, so he's the Secretary of State in the United States. There's recently been a conference held in the United States on far left violence and terrorism, and actually New Zealand was present, and I think myself a good thing. But I'm just going to play a short snippet from Marco Rubio, and then make a couple of quick comments.
The overwhelming share of that violence came from left-wing extremists. Between 1970 and 1980, 93% of terrorist attacks in the West came from the far extremist left. These are numbers that would shock most Americans today, because we've been taught to believe that this kind of political violence, it simply doesn't exist, or it's being exaggerated. But it does exist, and we're actually underestimating it. And our nations bear the scars to prove it. And today we face a new wave of this old evil. Here in the United States, The share of left-wing terrorist attacks and plots has risen to levels not seen in decades. In Germany, far-left violence has jumped by more than 40% in just the last year alone. In Greece, more than 80% of radical violence is now driven by far-left and anarchist actors. These are not abstract statistics. Americans have seen what those numbers mean. An all-out assault on our immigration officers, sniper attacks, explosives, armed ambushes, a transgender shooter opening fire on Catholic elementary school students as they pray, his gun marked with slogans like, "Where is your God now?" A healthcare executive executed in cold blood in the streets. Multiple assassination attempts on a sitting president, and the murder of the greatest conservative activist of a generation, a man who happened to also be a husband and the father of 2 young children.
So talking obviously about Charlie Kirk, look, I think this is actually a really important conversation that needs to be had. I mean, violence is not simply and only of the left. Of course, there's violence on the right. But actually the overwhelming violence that we're seeing in societies at the moment, particularly in Western societies, is coming from the left. Again, you think even here in New Zealand, when Posey Parker was attacked in Albert Park because of her gender-critical views, that was far-left violence. We're seeing that in the political rhetoric and the likes of Te Pāti Māori talking about cutting down, the likes of David Seymour and so on, the threats that are continually made by the far left against anyone who speaks out against them. And so I think it's a really confronting conversation for many because, of course, the left, the progressives, never want to talk about the violence which they enact. In fact, what they do is run about yelling and screaming about all the left supposedly from conservatives and Christian nationalists and so forth. It doesn't actually bear out in any of the stats or any of the numbers. And when you look at what's happening in America at the moment, as I said, the trans shooters, the multiple assassination attempts on President Trump, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the attacking still of people on the streets, that execution of the healthcare executive, for example. What's happening in the UK, that was very present when we were there. And I see a comment of someone asking me too about Anne Widdecombe. Again, we're pretty sure that this was a left-wing motivated attacker who bludgeoned her to death, hit her 21 times with a hammer. I wrote about it in last week's Substack. Anne is the 3rd political murder in the last, 15 or so years. There's Sir David Amis, killed by an Islamic terrorist, stabbed to death, another actually Catholic conservative like Anne. And of course there was Jo Cox. She was killed by a right-wing extremist, which goes back to my original point. Violence is not simply of the left or of the right. Both have an issue, but actually far left violence is far, far more prevalent. And I think this is the sad irony that we're seeing in a lot of conversations these days, is so much in the mainstream media and certainly a number of politicians, usually always from the left, so again Te Pāti Māori, the Greens, always blaming, the right wing, we've got to watch out for Christian nationalists, whatever that is, I don't know. But anyway, we've got to watch out for these groups. We've got to watch for far right violence. Actually, that's not where the violence is coming from. It's coming from the left wing. And so this just needs to be confronted. So good that the Americans are actually talking about this. Good that New Zealand attended as well. Very, very important. Very, very important. Hey guys, I will leave it there. A reminder, political playback tonight. Bob is still overseas, so I have a very special guest. It's Brendan Malone. We're going to be talking, we'll be talking what's happened to Stuart Nash. That's breaking political news. We'll be talking about the latest polls. We'll be talking about various policy announcements. Nationals come out wanting to change our consent laws. The Greens are talking about something called Kiwi Power, an automatic unionism act, wants to have people with dumb phones, and I think New Zealand First only wants citizens to vote. So there's lots to discuss, and Brendan will be my special guest tonight while Bob is away. So tune in live from 5, just like bring your comments and questions. We always love them. Reminder too, as well, I've already done so actually, know that you can jump on to Substack. I'm trying to write another one at the moment. I just keep being distracted by that, but I know some have been asking in the comments around what I've said around Anne. So yeah, jump over to my Substack, just look up my name or On Point and you'll find me. Always check out Bob. He's got stuff to say. And a final reminder before I completely sign off, do sign up for Forum on the Family. It is going to be fantastic and so much fun. We are expecting hundreds, as we always do, of people from all around the country. We have amazing speakers. New venue this year. It's in Auckland Central. It's in the Victory Convention Centre. Many of you will know it. It's right there by the motorway and opposite Victoria Park. Lots of parking. There'll be great food, great conversations, and great camaraderie. So guys, enjoy your day. Thank you for joining me on this 150th episode, and thank you for letting me share a little bit of the trip we had. I always find travel a bit of a privilege, but I will say this too. It is lovely to be home because I didn't say this, I may have said it somewhere else, but it was usually about 45 degrees Celsius when we were in Morocco, and it was about 35 degrees when we were in both London and travelling Portugal. It was so hot. So I know it's cold and foggy here in New Zealand, but I must say there's a part of me is relieved. Anyway, guys, I will see those of you who can join us 5 o'clock tonight for political playback. Otherwise, I'll see you next Tuesday.